Hey everyone, how you guys doing today? Tonight, I guess it is. Days seem to be blurring together. Welcome, welcome. So today we're gonna start up a new conversation. A little bit about tonight's. We're gonna call it a new show. We are going to start talking about world building, and a little bit about the process of going through as a new game master, coming up with your own custom stuff or altering existing stuff. Tonight with me, I have my co-host KCT92,
Hey, what's up, everybody?
and we're going to get right into it. I think. So one of the things that I personally like to think about a little bit when I'm looking at world building is, am I looking at it from a top-down mode or a bottom-up mode? What do I mean by that exactly? Well, do I want to start with the minuscule stuff like an individual city, or do I want to think more about the whole world as a whole and how each area relates to each other? What are your thoughts on that, Casey? What do you like to start with?
I tend to do the bottom up approach. Um, in our first game, that was the way I went. When we first started playing, I started with the city. We had that city Dragon's Reach, and I kind of built around that. I like drawing maps, so I drew the map first, and from there, sorry, and from there, once I had the map, I plan out all my locations, places you guys need to know about, um, and then build from there. So like city builds out to nation, and then by the time it matters to you guys, some form of like world map. Um, and honestly, that has still a work in progress as I have yet to finish that whole world. Our game world has been that we've been playing in for the past almost 5 years now, like 4 years, is Run, RHUN, and it's still going and still building out from that initial city of Dragon's Reach.
So I'm kind of on the same boat. I kind of like to start with a smaller area. I might think about the world as a whole. Like I might think about things like, is this area that we're starting in conflict with another area, things like that. But in general, it's a bit overwhelming if you just start with the top down. In my opinion, I prefer much more minute level, and it's a little bit, in my opinion, easier to start with a single area. The other benefit of doing that, of course, is that once you have a small area done, you can actually go ahead and start gaming and kind of build it out from there. Of course,
There we go. For some reason, my channel wasn't posting.
yeah, I had to mess with it a little bit. It was frozen. I don't know. I had to like move it around a little bit, get your camera to show up again.
I love the animated background. I've been meaning to mess with animated backgrounds. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it wasn't too difficult to do. Let me show you sometime for sure.
It might kill my computer.
It might, especially if you get a bigger video. Um, so the other things that we were thinking about talking about a little bit tonight is one is inspiration. Like, where do you normally find your inspiration for your game worlds?
I mean, I'm an English teacher, so of course I'm a big reader. Um, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, Out of the Silent Planet. I really like Lloyd Alexander's The Chronicles of Prydain, which features the Black Cauldron, Beowulf, King Arthur myth. Um, I just read a lot, and then of course television and real world stuff too. Honestly, every traveling is a great way to. If I find myself on the road for a long time, I'll see something that gives me an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely pull references from everything that I do, like video games, other tabletop games that I play. Also, like books and comics. TV shows are also good. I don't usually like steal the entire story per se, but I might
Oh
like
no,
see something cool that I liked in the show and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna work that into our game and see
I've also
how that
yeah,
works out." You know?
I've also borrowed from other games I've played in. Um, I know we had one of my favorite aspects you guys left the one city, we went to the capital. I feel like you guys really liked the gladiators pit I put there, the heroes kiln. Um, the name was mine, and I changed and I made it my own. But I had played in a game where the DM had put in a gladiatorial pit like 2 weeks beforehand, and I was like, that was great. I want to do that, and so
Yeah, and I think like the one like quick game that I ran that was in space, I got a lot of inspiration from that from the 100, which is a show on Netflix, where they're kind of like destroyed their home world and they go back to see if it's safe to live on. And so there was a lot of cool little pieces that they used in the show that I really liked, and I worked it into some of the game.
nice. Just trying to find. So I know one of our goals is to talk about like or to make a new world on this stream
Yeah.
to start kind of fresh and make a new. But I think to that end, do we want to talk about some of our own experience with that? I kind of mentioned mine. I built out uh, the world of Run, and I'm still working on that. Eventually, I'd like to release it as a campaign setting, though that might, who knows? It's getting large at this point.
Can
And
you
you did that
can you guys
space
hear Casey now?
setting.
I turned up the audio a little bit.
I can turn up on my end too. I recently switched from headset to mic for my audio, and it's taken some experimentation.
I think they should be reading you now. I can't. I haven't got any response back yet, but I think so.
Yeah,
I
is
can
that
see
any
it picking
better?
up on my end, so I cranked it up a little bit, so should be a little better, hopefully.
Check.
All right. Well, let us know if you
Yeah, I can hear
still
me.
can't hear it. But I think so. All right. So what were we saying?
Um, but yeah, we've both had our own game worlds that we've made and tried out over over a while, frankly, um, and done that in different ways. You've only at this point GM'd for Dungeons and Dragons, right, Joe?
Yes.
And I don't mean that like you've only done that, but
I
like
haven't
that's
done
just
any
where
official
your
tabletop
experience has
games
been.
besides that. Yeah.
Okay. I have been trying to branch out, and it's been interesting how that changes the world building experience a little bit because you get to kind of break the mold a little. I've done D&D at this point, as well as Kids on Bikes and Call of Cthulhu and a couple other smaller games, and I think that's kind of helped as well because one thing I'm going to be talking about on Friday when we do our Kids on Bike stream, collaborative world building with the players involved, and that's something we'll be able to get into as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of a whole different sort of world building because you're not just setting out the world and being like, here, explore it. Everyone's kind of creating it on their own as they go, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. So, like on Friday, what I'm going to do, and for those unfamiliar, Kids on Bikes is a like a sci-fi style, like supernatural horror game, where you play as teens or children in a small town. With some supernatural occurrence going on in the style of Stranger Things, The Goonies, It, stuff like that. Um, and I made my notes on stream last night for our session 0, which is going to be this Friday. We're going to be playing on stream with a few other friends, and a lot of that for me is just making sure I knew the questions I want to ask. So on Friday, I'll be like, Joe, what city and state are we playing in? Does the story take place? And he'll answer, and then I can ask the rest of the table, everyone cool with that? Anyone want to suggest something different? And once everyone agrees on something, we'll move on. What year is it? And I really love that, and that's something I've been really interested in lately because everyone is already invested in the world before the game even starts, and it's not up to the GM to be a living encyclopedia and take 5 to 10 minutes every once in a while during the game to explain a large portion. You guys decided where your favorite place is already. You already know it. And that's one of the reasons I really love that as something new I'm playing with.
Yeah, I think that style of game probably also eventually encourages other people to try it too, so that you're not always running the game and you're getting to play as well, which is one of the things that you run into a lot with D&D is that the DM is kind of like the life DM for the rest of the time, unless someone picks it up.
I know that feeling.
So, that's a big thing that you see a lot of people writing about in the forums and stuff on Reddit, and even like in the different digital platforms like Roll20, that people are
Very
just
much
kind of
so.
stuck in that role for a long time.
So I know we wanted to like talk about things, but we're also, of course. Oh, here's a good question. You mentioned like inspiration. What do you draw? What are you watching? What are you reading right now?
Currently, I am actually reading back through some of the R.A. Salvatore books, which, if you're not familiar with those are largely the Underdark series. It goes a lot into Loth and kind of the Dark Elf realm of existence and how they came to be. Very interesting so far. I'm only like, I don't know, about halfway through the first book.
Nice. I just started a series that's really cool, and I think you would like it. It's called Binti, and it starts the first issue. It's a trilogy, and they get longer as they go. It was originally meant to be just a novella. It's by, and I apologize if I get this name wrong. I'm so bad with pronunciation. Nedi Okorafar. Um, and it's a sci-fi fantasy trilogy. It gets better as it goes, and it gets longer as it goes. And I'm definitely going to be playing with some of that stuff coming up in games and world building. I want to run something sci-fi so bad. I want to take some players into space and make some weird like alien planets.
Yeah, I kind of actually
That
want to restart our space adventure that we had. I think that was really
I
fun.
yeah.
So
But this
that's
book,
definitely
like
of
the other
interest.
species in it, I think one of the best things that's done it for me is like Mass Effect, as far as like getting aliens that are not what you expect. They're not just bipedal, almost humans. My favorite example being those jellyfish-like creatures. I don't remember what they're called right now. Um, but I really loved that about Mass Effect are giant sloth people that have to move slowly because they're used to larger gravity. In this, we have things like translucent jellyfish people who um, are a hive mind or something like that, or aliens made of living electricity. Um, Awaken Online. I'm not familiar.
Huh. I'll definitely have to add that to my Kindle and see what it's about.
Huh. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm really just getting back into reading, to be honest. After grad school finished last summer, I've had to like take a break from reading a lot.
Yeah, I
Grad school
haven't been
destroyed my
reading
love
as
of reading.
much, but with all of the time that we've had at home recently, I've
Mm-hmm.
found myself running out of Netflix shows in the evening, so I am starting to read a
Sure.
little bit more.
I I'm actually working. I'm glad you guys are mentioning these novels. I'm working on a. I'm starting to branch out to YouTube, and I'm working on a couple of a video series right now where I'll do like top or 10 novels or series of novels to give you inspiration for your fantasy game. Then I'm gonna do one for your sci-fi game, and then like your historical reimagining game, so on and so forth. And I believe Mistborn is on my list. I saw Mistborn.
Funny, like
Um,
one of the places that I find the most inspiration are the things that you don't normally consider like truly fantasy worlds. Like I look at like comedy shows and stuff, and I pull inspiration from that. Like I think it would be hilarious to have a tabletop game where you have like an NPC in the game that is Trevor from GTA. He's just constantly waking up in different places with random pieces of clothing on.
I had a similar one. I kind of want to do something. I've been watching Dave on Hulu, and I can't promise we won't have a very Lil Dicky esque bard sometime in the near future.
I was
Or
wondering if that was any good. It
Megan's got me
looked
watching The
interesting.
Great.
It definitely looked interesting.
It's really funny. It's one of those shows that I can barely watch because it's got like that passive embarrassment. kind of thing going on,
Oh,
where
yeah.
like the characters are so cringy.
Well,
I'm reading a comic book called Monstrous, and that's heavily influenced the stuff I like to do in game. I've only recently gotten into comic books, and that's mostly your fault because I started with the Vader comics.
you're welcome.
I enjoy them; they're so good.
So yeah, I mean, there's really a lot of places that you can build inspiration on for your games, and like just because it doesn't necessarily fit the system that you're going in, don't let that stop you. You can work it into the game in many different ways.
And speaking of, don't let that stop you. As far as like the media you're drawing from, I feel like this is one of the particular things where if you go to like when I've gone to the game store or I'm talking to people on Twitter about gaming, this is where you get that like turn your nose up at it when you start mentioning like I drew from like I watched this anime and I think that would I have some ideas for a game. For some reason, particularly anime, a lot of players slash game masters want to turn their nose up at that for some reason. And while I would encourage you to not like make your game a reskin of your favorite anime, that might be a little like enjoy your own creativity a little more, maybe if you like to. But there's nothing wrong with drawing from that kind of stuff.
Right.
Similarly, don't like just draw from the fan like I think Brian Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss are great authors. But look outside that box too and read some of the people that you wouldn't think of.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's like anything that is of interest to the group or that even is just a cool idea, like it's worth trying to pull it into your game because if you enjoyed it, there's a chance that the people that you have the most in common with probably will too, you know, which are usually the people you choose to run games with anyways. So
I've also been playing Monster Hunter World and I have some great monsters in mind.
I really need to get back into that. It looked like a lot of fun. I played it a
It
little
is,
bit,
but
but
you
it's
can't play it
very
alone.
it's very much like you have to have a full party or you're on the struggle bus.
So much so. Let's
Huh.
yeah.
But other
I should
ideas
have
that
some
things you need to look at when you're building your world of interest, like the geography is important in some instances. Like if your world is very heavily water, based, there's a lot of aqua and stuff.
I wish I could show you my original map, like the first map I drew. And it's gotten progressively more complex from there. But I went and bought just a piece of poster board and I looked up a bunch of city maps and just started drawing a city. And I almost recommend try not to do like a big city for your first map. And I'm talking from that like bottom down perspective of starting with a town and moving outward. Of course, you can do the opposite. But I think personally, I like to draw the map first and then start naming things and have fun with naming them. I like to, I have a list, and I don't necessarily have these all assigned to places, but I have a list of 50 tavern names that I've come up with, 50 barkeeps with a little description next to them, 15 shops that sell armor, and here's who owns them and what they're like. And I have those ready to go. Some of them are assigned, like I know where they are in the world. Some of them I just have ready if Joe says, "Hey, I need to go buy some spellbook paper." I'm like, "Oh, let me consult my. Yeah, there's totally one of those here. It's on my backup stock shop names, and then it's canon."
So that kind of segments a little bit into one of the other things that I wanted to kind of show people is there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to help you with these world creation. Let me switch my view real quick, and I'm going to show you guys this tool that I found.
Cool. That gets into we have that right. That's Warforged.
Yeah, I mean, there's several different ones. I'm going to put one in the chat for you guys. So this is a kind of a
I love this
automatic medieval fantasy city generator. So if you go to this, refresh, it'll create a new layout for you, and you could go in and you could add, which it's going to take a little bit probably because I'm streaming, but Yeah, so you can go in here, you can choose what kind of size you want it to be, and then you can export this, right? And then you can kind of fill in these things for yourself of what are each of these buildings in this little city.
Mm-hmm.
And it saves a lot
Also,
of time if you want to do something like that.
yeah. And don't forget there are published adventures out there. I totally just put Waterdeep in our world, in not the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, and that's
Talking about
another
that.
thing a lot of people do is they
There are the
start
worlds,
with those.
baby.
You know, they start with the pre-written adventure and then they go like from there and spread out a lot of times. That's very common. I'm doing that right now.
Our first game was a Planeswalker game where it wasn't a lot of players that like Magic, so I kind of incorporated like if you die, you roll 3d20, and if you get 2 20s, your spark ignites. It happened one time, and some other players decided to start trying to like put themselves in near-death situations to replicate it, but letting them travel the planes gave me some time to flesh out the actual world.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like, so going back to that whole again, if you're starting with the small and expanding out. So say you wrote this entire city, right? Which I'm gonna put back up on the map for you so you can see it. So say that you spec'd out every building in this area. You start your game. Your players say, "Hey, I'm gonna walk out into the woods and keep going." And so you run into this. Oh, I only came up with the content for this world, for this little bit of my world. So what do? Well, most people freak out. Usually is the first response, but honestly, the best thing is just go with it. Just create something on the fly, or even don't be afraid to reuse some of your NPCs that you created for this area somewhere else. Just because you got a guy who's a baker here, right? Well, surprise, he's out in the woods getting some materials and didn't make it back.
For sure. You guys love to do that to me. You guys love to do that to me. We've had a whole city adventure, and you guys will be like, "Oh no, the cops are after us. The best thing to do is find another town. Our reputation's ruined here." It's like, "Oh, screw you guys. I guess you don't get the bar."
Just expect the unexpected from players. That's the best advice I can give to any game master.
So then I'm like, "Oh yeah, Joe's character Holly has friends that are hedge mages. How about I set them up like 30 miles away from the city and they're living in a cool hollowed out tree?" And then I just start saying things about hollowed out trees that I hadn't planned on, and the NPCs that I had planned for 5 sessions from now are now. And it worked out really well. And then I made you fight a Rakshasa.
Yeah, I
which made
mean,
me happy.
the honest truth is most game masters are not prepared for 3 or 4 sessions out. They are prepared for the one session that you're in, and they wing it from there. And that's fine. That's one of the fun things about it is like, oh gosh, my players did something I was not expecting. How do I handle it?
It's also the most terrifying part. I'm very thankful that I have like trained in acting, going and writing, going into getting into the whole TTRPG community. I've done Shakespeare, I've done modern comedy, but I've also done improv. And you'll hear this a lot, but one of the first things you learn when you start doing improv is yes and. And I'm sure you've heard that term before. Yes and is your best friend when you're doing stuff like this, making a game world or running a game for friends. Listen, you don't have to come up with everything. They're talking, the players are talking. Yes and just means that you accept that and you expand upon it. If someone gives you something, if Joe says, "I'm going to go into the woods to this pond I know about," I'm not going to say, "There's no pond out there. What are you talking about?" I'm going to say, "Yeah, totally, that pond. And, oh yeah, when you went there, of course, there was that woman there. That woman that was bathing near the north side of the pond. She's there again." Or something. Yeah, so like I take what the players give me and I roll with it, and yes, and then something else.
And a lot of times, honestly, you don't have to come up with everything for them either. Like if they're like, "Oh, I go out into this area that you don't have explored," sometimes that's a great opportunity to give them some time to talk amongst themselves as players. You know, like
Mhm.
role playing out things.
And for you to listen.
I'll just describe a little bit about the setting, and then I'll be like, "Okay, what are you guys doing?" And I'll listen and let
Mhm.
them have their conversation. And that
Fun
has been the
show.
most interesting games.
Hmm.
You end up with all kind of
Um,
crazy stuff happening.
I'm actually really scared concerning what I just said, Joe. In the other game I'm playing, that game's about to go on hiatus because our GM is getting deployed. But we're coming up on like kind of this penultimate fight, and it's been this big thing. This like politician that my character particularly like put a lot of faith in, just backstabbed us like really bad, and we've wound up in a situation where we got to fight this guy, but he was like, I get to choose 6 people to fight your 6 people. Or you're so like him and 6 others versus our 7. And it's like, cool. And then I remembered our GM, who's also a Critical Role fan, had introduced the idea that Percy and Vexalia had traveled to our world, our game world, for a research expedition. That Percy was researching the planes and the idea of alternate dimensions. Because Percy was a lot of our favorite CR character. And I remembered that this politician had jailed Percival Kowalski von Musil de Rolo III. And I was like, oh shit. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, no, no. I'm not going to say it because then you'll do it. But I'm totally worried he's going to have Vexalia be one of his 6 and that she's doing that to get Percy out of jail. But I didn't say it because if I did, I would be speaking it into existence because the GM is
Yeah,
always listening.
we all are always listening. That is true.
Oh.
Just taking down a little note here. You know.
Yeah, basically. My wife is horrible about that. She'll be like, "Oh no, it's this, isn't it? It's gonna be this thing. That's gonna be a gibbering mouther behind that door. I hate those." I'm like, "Oh, you do."
Well, it
And
wasn't,
then
but
it
now it
totally
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, if you tell me something is really like you're worried about it, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what it is, it's probably coming. Oh man.
But
So
cosmology. This is one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to do is the real religion and the like the mythology of the world. That's another great place to start. If you're not a map maker, first of all, totally fine. Joe just showed you a great way to not have to make maps. I'll link later to a Patreon I really like called Dynamic Maps. It's really cool, but it's more for like battle maps. Um, but one of my favorite things is to sit and make the creation myth of the world. And if I want to do that, I'm going to go read a bunch first, probably mythology and stuff like that. I'm a big Tolkien fan, so the Silmarillion comes to mind. But with our game, I started with the idea that like there was nothing, elemental chaos, and then one deity created all the rest, similar to the Silmarillion. Um, but I like playing with the idea that like maybe this deity is worshipped in different ways and by different names in different areas of the world. So I've enjoyed like, oh, Io is worshipped in this country under the name Io, and this is what they believe about him. But then if we go south, they actually pronounce it Ao and believe it slightly differently. Or maybe Pelor is not really liked in certain parts of the world. And creating like the family ties between the deities and their relationships with one another and who created which sentient races is something I love doing.
yeah, and I'm normally on the opposite end of that spectrum. It's normally the last thing that I touch,
Really,
which is really interesting.
I love it because that kind of tells me something about the world. Like if I end up thinking a lot about a sea god or something, then I'm probably going to make a world with a lot of water.
Yeah, I mean
Or
that definitely makes sense from that aspect.
Mhm.
I do kind of think of it in that, like, and that's another one of the concepts to think about too, is when you're starting your story, because it's what it really is. You're telling a story. Um, think about who your villain is in your story. Who are your heroes? And
Mhm.
a lot of times that will draw up information about your world too. So if you're like, oh, my villain is a vampire who's hiding in the city. Maybe they're even high up in the ranks of the city.
Mhm. Furthermore, if you have a bunch of players with urban backgrounds who like city stuff, they'll put them in the middle of the Great Forest. And vice versa. If I have three rangers, a druid, and a fey warlock, I'm probably not putting them in New York, where there's no trees
But
or
see,
things that they
on the
like.
other end of that, though, that can be an interesting role playing experience.
I mean, we might work our way there, but I'm probably not going to start there.
So, like, an example, though, that I think of immediately when you describe that is our trip to the jungle in our like short-lived Rumble in the Jungle campaign, where my character was very much not from the jungle, and the experience of going in and
Oh,
having
sure.
bugs everywhere.
Mm-hmm. But we clearly established that I knew that's what you wanted to do beforehand. I guess is more what I mean.
I guess so. I typically like will give my players an idea of what they're playing in
Mm-hmm.
before, so they can kind of come up with that themselves. But
Yeah.
it's interesting for sure.
Or like our Descent into Avernus game. I made my cleric Alexander Grimm, who's a knowledge cleric, and I wanted to make him sort of like this Jedi counselor type of figure, very much non-combative for the most part, more focused on healing, but had this secondary side of wanting to like reveal hidden knowledge and like almost like an archaeologist Indiana Jones type figure. He wants to like uncover things, and if there's a lie that's hurting people, he wants to tell the truth. So I told Joe, I want to make like a character that's part of some kind of organization within his church that like susses out conspiracies and lies. Like if there's like the like kind of an anti-Illuminati type thing, and Joe ran with that, and he added to his game world a bunch of cells and headquarters for what we came to know as the Anai Theater, like a secret order of of not even a secret order, but like this order of uh, kind of anti-conspiracy clerics, and that was something that came up with after the characters were made.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of times especially if you have a lot of newer players, you don't have as much opportunity to do if you don't really work with your players and get them to tell you what kind of game experience they're expecting too. If they tell you this is what I'd like for my character, a lot of times that helps with your world building.
Yeah, and that's why Session Zero is so important.
Yeah, which a lot of people skip because it's just it's, oh, I know how to play, but it's not really about do you know how to play, or even so much about creating your character as it is about figuring out what you want out of the experience with
Mm-hmm.
everyone. You know.
Mm-hmm. Other things to think about. Culture is something I love to think about. I'm a big I study a lot, right? Like I'm a scholar type. I'm an English teacher. I like to read. Um, and I know quite a bit about like world cultures, and what I don't know, I like to learn. So when I think about regions in my game world, I will pick maybe three. Homogeneous is not the right word because that's a problematic word to use in this case. But three cultures with ties to one another, perhaps, um, or that can synergize well to create something a little more not just pulling from the real world. And I'll kind of take aspects from those and as I think about my game culture. My favorite region in our world of Run is the island nation of Kote Tao, which I went and I read a lot of traditional Polynesian stories and from the Philippines and Malaysia and a little bit of like Aboriginal mythology and stories, and kind of looked at those things and not necessarily copied straight from them, but thought in that scheme for the people of Kote Tau. We have a player who's a barbarian from that area, and when she goes into a rage, it's her performing a haka, like the traditional Maori dance form, um, or just some of their celebrations are kind of based on that, or how they interpret their class, or not class structure, but like hierarchical structure. We have another part of the world that's largely based on colonial America, where the people there are very in the mindset of like exploration and going out and grabbing land, and it's very much a thing in that part of the world. Of there's land to be claimed. There's the world of Skarsgård, which is hyper libertarian, and I went and gritted my teeth through some Ayn Rand for that.
Oh man, the contracts and everything in that area.
You guys haven't been to Skarsgård in a
Oh
while.
yeah, I mean,
75 years since you guys went and helped them reestablish the nation. Now it's way different. And I don't want to say too much, but one of the things you'll find if you ever went back there is what you guys did in Skarsgård, which was a dead nation for hundreds of years, and you guys helped them reclaim the capital and start rebuilding that civilization. You'll find that some of their government is based on things your characters told them.
oh gosh.
Fun fact, I don't know if you remember, you guys found that tapestry that had some embarrassing truths about Bahamut and some things from Bahamut's holy text that turned out to be untrue. You left that there. And that may come into play.
Sounds like something we would do.
I can't wait for you guys to also meet the Dragon Riders of House Bren.
That is just like it is another exciting thing about doing game design too, is that a lot of times you'll play in a world for years, and we played in this campaign for what, 3 years, something like that.
About 3.5 maybe.
And then we started a new campaign, and we were able to start in the same worlds years later and see some of the changes from the first game.
Mm-hmm. I want to say it's 75 years later in this case, which, yeah, you guys got to see the world kind of change. You met one NPC from our former game, though you don't know it yet.
And that's a really fun thing for players. I can speak to that for sure. It's just like playing the game and getting these like small attachments to these NPCs and stuff as you're playing with, and then you run into them again, or even your own character you might, sometimes run into later in the game.
Mm-hmm. I was so happy when you found that book written by your own simulacrum from the previous campaign.
Yeah, it makes the game really interesting when that kind of stuff happens. And
Mm-hmm.
it definitely requires like some time commitment to get to those kind of things, but that is the really good like parties that you get together are the ones that get to see those kind of things where you're like 3, 4, 5 years into like the same story, because you really do build it together at that point.
Yeah. You guys have had just as much influence on that world as I have, if not more. And we've talked about that too. I'm cool with letting my players design part of the world. I've left areas blank because I don't know if I'll need something later. So it's like, something's come up and I haven't planned for it. So there's like this dead area on the map that I can fill in if I need to. And I've offered that to Joe or Drew or my wife Megan, and if they want to design part of the world, I can be like, here, let's talk. Maybe you can help me come up with something cool.
Yeah, I mean, I know with the first game, we actually had another player who was stopped playing with us who created a small portion of our world, which was really cool and very, very mean. Thanks, JD.
Oh, the Isle of Rot. I still have all that stuff too.
Oh man.
It's still out there.
So how do you as new game masters, how do you get started? Is one of the things that I hear from some of my friends who are like, I just don't think I could do it. They're nervous, and it's first I recommend you have played the game first. It makes a world
Mhm.
of difference. Um,
Well, what that comes right down to is sometimes if you want to play, someone's got to bite the bullet.
that's true.
For me personally, I played a couple games in college at UT Martin with some friends, and then I moved back home to Clarksville. And my boss at the time, who I'd gotten to know pretty well, JD, the formerly mentioned other person that used to play with us, um, told me he and his friends had been talking about Stranger Things and wanted to start playing D&D. And I said, "Oh, I've played a little bit." And he's like, "Cool. You want to split the cost of some books and start playing with us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "None of us know what we're doing though, and since you've played a couple times before, can you run it?"
He
I'm like,
gave you the
"Sure."
old like captain on the boat look and said, "You are the captain now." And walked away.
Basically, and I want to be clear. I came in not knowing what the hell I was doing. I still don't know what the hell I am doing. But that kind of worked out well because no one knew what they were doing. So we just have our own version, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. And all of us
And
kind of
that's
played different characters, and
yeah,
it just worked out very well.
yeah, and that's fine. Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford over at Wizard of the Coast D&D team keep on telling everybody the rules are more like guidelines, really. And if you need help or if you don't know how to handle something, use one of the rules. But if you got it, you're good. Don't worry about it. Do what's fun, not what's correct.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a correct, not really.
And if you really care that
I
much
yeah,
about being correct, you can always retcon it later if you make a
mm,
wrong call.
yeah. My players like opening businesses, and the rules for opening a business in the published stuff suck.
They
I'm
really
calling you
do.
out, Wizards. Your business running stuff sucks.
They really
It's
do.
it's not rewarding. Like you barely make any money. There's no reward for opening a business and running it well.
Well, to be
So I said, screw that, and we redid it.
their rules on making a business are very much like this is what an NPC business would bring in, but your
Yeah,
players are making like way more than that, like super early, so
yeah.
it's just not beneficial.
Why would I start a business that's going to make me $5 a month when I make that in a couple days times 1,000 from dungeon
Yeah.
delving? What's the point? So instead, when Veros opens up a line of brothels slash wineries for some reason, it's got to be worth him doing it.
Oh man, Veros. That was just so much fun.
I had a character. We were playing kind of like a high divinity type campaign where the players became like champions of certain gods, and were given a task that if they succeeded would allow them to ascend to like minor deity status. And so my character like started pretty early as a warlock, like forming his own church, and that was kind of a business I had to run. I bought buildings and had them done up as Feywild gardens inside, and it was basically like a hedonistic party slash concert all the time. But it was really rewarding because the DM didn't just use the Dungeon Master's Guide rules. We got to talk about like booking performers for celebrations within these temples and making backdoor fees and stuff like that, and it was great.
I think a lot of newer game masters particularly get lost in the details, and it's really like you don't have to worry about it. It's like how many times that my players have came to a store to buy something, and they'll be like, "What do you have?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't have anything prepared. Let me just go find some random stuff real quick. Oh, there's no price for
Yeah,
this.
roll it.
Yeah, that sounds right." And just wing it. It's like
Yeah,
sometimes you give your players stuff that's way broken way
yeah.
early, and you got to just kind of speed up the power level a little bit. It happens.
I mean, I'll bring up one. Um, we should probably at some point on this show talk about the Matt Mercer effect.
Yeah,
Just
that's a
that's a
real thing.
whole topic in and of itself. But to combat the Mercer effect a little bit, I like to make a habit of ragging on Matthew Mercer a little bit because I love Matthew Mercer to death, and he's really talented and really good at it. But he is human; he can bleed.
Yeah.
And let me give you an example of that: the Base of Haste from Campaign 1 of Critical Role.
Those things are so
If
overpowered.
you've watched Critical Role, and if you haven't, that's fine. He gave player Liam O'Brien for his assassin rogue, Vaxel Dawn, a pair of Boots of Haste, an item he came up with himself that when you click them together, you may spend your bonus action to cast the haste spell on yourself. Which is already, haste as a bonus action is already pretty dumb. Now let's add that into the enhanced speed for that character, and then add in the fact that he later gave him an item that gave him a fly speed of like 50.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I can
Once
move
he was a rogue,
200
so he could dash as a bonus action.
a
He
turn.
had 250 something movement speed by the end of the campaign. It was broke as hell. And Matthew Mercer called that out on Tox Machina. He's like, that item was a mistake. But
Yep.
you know what? Some of my favorite moments from that game were Vaxeldon moving around the map like a whirling dervish of death.
But you know,
And
that's
it was
the
fun. Liam O'Brien loved it.
exactly that's the thing that a lot of game masters just forget is like sometimes the mistakes make your game what it is. It makes those accidental fun moments because it's really like it's fun for everyone. They're like, oh my goodness, he just ran all the way across the map, stabbed someone, and ran all the way back. It
I was yelling
happens.
for the king the other day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. Let's be honest. If you play video games, the first thing that you do is try to make that character in a video game the most overpowered that you can, so you can just sit back and watch everything around you die if you're playing like a dungeon crawler.
And we play Magic the Gathering, and Joe in particular, he gets a particular like joy out of trying to break games.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes.
Joe made a stupid Warlock Sorcerer multi-class that was the bane of my existence, because he likes to break games. But you know what? If your players like to break games, let them break the game.
Exactly.
It's okay. Just throw Parask at them or something. If they want to up the game, just up it right back.
That's right. And not only that, but it's like just because you look at a stat for a monster in the book, you know, that doesn't have to be what that stats for that monster is. You want to make it harder, you can make it harder. It's very easy to modify and just tweak stuff. And we'll take a look at some of that in this series
Monster
for sure.
design needs to be a specific episode too.
Yeah, that's
talking about things like how to calculate challenge rating, and then the fact that calculating challenge rating doesn't work.
yeah. I don't use challenge rating hardly at all.
They don't work.
I kind of have just learned a general like rule is if I look at a monster and they have more than one action per turn, I need to see if their base damage can kill a player in one turn, they should probably only have one attack.
So, Jada, pull that map back up. Instead of talking about it, let's just do some.
Yeah, let's.
If the chat wants to give some suggestions, they can do that as well. We'll pull that map back up, and let's come up with some stuff for it. Maybe a fresh one.
Let's see if I can refresh this real quick. Get us a new one.
Chat, give us a name for a city. You can do it. I believe in you.
I'm Stoke. Wow, what a name. Where does this thing come up with these names? They're interesting.
I don't know, but we can do better. We can do better. Chat, what's the name of the city?
See if we can't get a couple options, and we'll go from there. I'm actually going to see if I can't export this. Let's save it as a image.
I'm going to get a drink while we do that.
Yeah. Come on. You can do it. My computer is not being very happy at the moment because I have a lot of stuff going on. Just move this over here out of view real fast. And I'm going to save this. All right. So I'm going to get some stuff set up really fast while he's running to the restroom. I'm just going to create a new game. Let's go ahead and do this in Roll20, just so you can kind of see. So I'm going to create a new game. We're going to call this World Building for now, because I don't have a name for my city. I'm going to add just some character sheets just in case I want them. So I'm going to put in the Dungeons and Dragons ones, because it's probably the system I'm most familiar with. And okay, and I'm ready to create, and that is going to create a new world. I'm going to put this map into that world. It's going to launch this game. So if you're not familiar, Roll20 is a online virtual like map desktop system that you can run within a browser. It's free to use. You get more features if you have a paid account, of course. Some cool things like dynamic lighting and things like that, which I have on my account. But I'm going to go ahead and drop this map in here.
Setting my mixer up for stream was one of the best decisions I've made. I just reach over and press the mute button on the mixer.
Oh, there's one on the mic. I just push it on my mic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm using an XLR mic, so I don't have the fancy buttons.
So I've just dropped the map into Roll20. I'm going to use this just as a kind of like a holding pattern to place some stuff in. So once I have this here, I can put it onto my map layer just by right-clicking. And now I have this map that we just created that I could easily show my players. And I'm going to go ahead and just create some documents on it.
Mm-hmm.
So a little handout here. All right.
And let's later. Let's do Incarnate as well later, not now.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just a quick, easy thing to do. So world information. And all right. So in here you have player visible stuff and GM visible stuff, which only matters if you're going to show this document to your players. For now, we're just going to use it as like a notebook. So things we care about probably: name, population, probably relevant.
City size like that. I did a whole research thing on population sizes, and I don't remember any of it.
And like for me, this could easily be city size as well. It could be, small, medium, large. It doesn't have to be specific, So let's just say it's a medium city.
Yeah, which I would say is probably like 100 to 200,000 people.
Other things that you might care about are, so there's geographic information.
We have a river nearby, and otherwise it looks pretty flat.
Climate.
Currently what I have in my head is probably like a floodplains type of thing going on.
Maybe wet. Rains a lot.
You see there's farms, there's grain or something growing out here. So it's got to be fairly wet enough to support pretty adequate farming.
So businesses, you could have farming, which I don't really like the way they format. That's why I tend to use other tools for this, but it's helpful to have this kind of stuff right in your... All right.
And what if we also said for this, I see the river. A town like this would probably work in river exports. Like riverboats traveling up and down would stop here to restock or exchange goods. Probably things like wine, sugar, things that are headed up and down the river. Perhaps a large part of the city's business is collecting tolls.
Coffee, just because. Gotta have coffee. Yeah, tolls could be a thing. This city is kind of... So, like, looking at this city, you've got some kind of structure over here that's sort of a large building of some sort. Could be your religious area. Could be a lot of different things.
It's walled. I feel like a prison.
Yeah, I like that. We could do prison. And so, like, if you want to call out specific things, you can add some text on here. So I could just down here just say prison. And for some reason, when you make a new text field in Roll20, it sets it to the smallest font you could ever see. I don't even know where that went.
One of the reasons I'm saying prison is because looking at this map, I think it would be kind of cool to have, like, and that's a classic, right? Having the parties start as prisoners or in jail. That city, that building, is one completely walled in, and two, it's adjacent to the farms. We could think that there's probably a couple, maybe entrances built into the wall there to send prisoners out to work the farms as part of their sentence.
And you can just kind of like, sketch on the map, whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just making little notes at the moment, right? So,
yeah.
Prison, it's definitely a thing. What else do we see in this city that we could have on here?
We have a big open space near the center. Maybe some kind of public gathering, and it's a rather large building in front of it.
That could also be like a marketplace.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the street vendors that sell fish and things like that. Which I don't see. This looks to be water, so that might be a river nearby. Could be fishing.
Yeah, that's a river. Or that's how I took it, at least.
Fish vendors. And there's definitely a lot of agriculture. So those are some of the businesses in the area. Other things, so we've got the city size. Still don't have a name yet. Geographic information. There's a river. Maybe there's a mountain off in the distance. All right.
We have a part of the city outside the walls, which one hints at me that probably things are pretty safe here. You don't build large sections outside the walls if it's not at least reasonably safe. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe there's some risk to living outside the walls, but it's obviously doable. So that tells me something. And that's probably also still the poor quarter, right? Probably poor people live outside the walls.
Probably. Especially if we're going for like a medieval theme, which this kind of has that feel to me. With the large, like, fenced in area around the entire city.
It's also, if that's a prison, that's the furthest from the prison. I don't know. We have a couple other large open squares here.
The other thing, that could be the prison. That could be also the governor's mansion, or like the person ruling the city could also be living there.
Or military, right?
Yeah, it could be military. So these are kind of like things that I normally think about when I'm looking at, like, what am I creating? Other things that I'd like to note: notable NPCs. So, like, who are the people that are the most, well known in the city? Like, who are the business owners? Like, what kind of businesses do you have? Well, we've got fish vendor, marketplaces, maybe a prison. So there's maybe a warden of the prison.
And I would put this large building in the center as probably the mayor's home.
I can see that.
Especially if that's like a marketplace or something. Political leaders love to look over those types of things. Perhaps he comes out on holidays and gives a speech in front of the market from his balcony or something like that.
Can definitely see that. I'll just add that on here. So you could do it like this. The other popular way to like do like quick fill out on your map is just to put a number in each of these things, and then have a handout that has this is what this is as a key to it.
From here, what I would probably do is not even necessarily place them, but start a new document and put like 10 taverns, 10 shops,
Yeah.
10 people around town.
So you might have NPCs for the city, and then this would of course be city name, or it might be a folder for the city.
I'm not naming this one, guys. You gotta tell me.
So what kind of characters do you think we might have in this city, Casey?
I mean, to me, the two most important are the innkeeper the players are staying at, and the guy who sells them the stuff they want.
So there's an innkeeper, probably some kind of bar hop that like runs around, or maybe like a server.
I'm a fan of sweet old lady bar innkeepers, but because I am, let's not do that this time, maybe.
Other people that you might run into is the mayor themselves. What else? If they're starting in the prison, then you might have a warden there. Other people.
If you're not, maybe it's a big thing. In city with that large of a prison, maybe that's a large part of their industry. Maybe the prisoners do a lot of work in and out of the city.
Like you have all this farmland around this, so if this is your prison, it makes sense that they work it, right? So their income, all of their food, everything comes from this prison. So maybe that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I would give the players a prisoner that they like, even if they're not prisoners themselves. Maybe there's this guy they run into whose job it is to sweep the streets, and he seems like a nice guy. You'd never believe he killed his brother.
So now we're kind of getting into a little bit about player start areas. So you might have, possibly as a prisoner, or family or friend of a prisoner, right?
That would be an interesting way to start a story. You always have players starting in prison. Like, that's just like a standard trope. But if they're living there to visit a friend of theirs that's stuck in prison, maybe they're there and they've been, like, for the past couple of years, been planning the prison break.
Yeah, or maybe they come to visit, and they see that their family or their friend is not being treated well. And that starts some of the gameplay, right? It's like, oh, what are we going to do about this?
Maybe you start the story off that they're running like a smuggling contraband into the prison. Like that's what they do for a living, and something goes awry.
Maybe they're making some corn whiskey for the prison.
Yeah,
and
something.
they're the people running it, right?
Yeah.
Because this is fantasy world, we're going to call it mead smugglers. I love it.
Getting in that gnome leaf. And this is the kind of place where I like to ask the players to help. And this is from my Kids on Bikes experience. Session 0 here, I'd be like, Joe, where does your character like to go drink? You tell me the name. Or at least is it tell me about the place. I might come up with the name, but tell me about the place. Oh, it's this nice comfy tavern on the north side of town. Wood paneled walls, always has decent lighting. The innkeeper.
So me personally, I kind of avoid the whole. For me, like starting in a prison is nowhere near as cliche as the starting at the inn or the bar trope.
Yeah, I didn't say we're starting.
That is the stereotypical. Yeah, we met at a bar.
Howard would disagree, sir.
So for me, like the way I like to start my games is a lot of times is the characters maybe don't all know each other, but there are places that they would be interacting with each other.
Mm-hmm. The
And
market,
so,
I think, is a great place to start the story.
yeah, the market would be a great area. I was just kind of brainstorming like this, like possibly one of the players could be a prisoner. Possibly one could be a friend visiting a prisoner. They could be actually running this mead. One of them might even be a guard that works at the prison.
And everyone's just at the shop doing different, or at the market doing different things. Guard player is there picking up um, the last meal for a guy who's scheduled to be hung tomorrow.
Yeah.
Who happens to be the brother that two of the other players are there to break out.
And the cool thing about starting like all of the players in different areas and having them kind of congregate in one area and meet up is that they may all have separate different information. Like the guard might know what's going on in the jail, might know it's like a bad place, but he can't do anything about it because he's just trying to feed his family or her family. Or maybe they're just trying to survive and they're barely making ends meet.
They can be easily swayed to help you, type of thing.
Yeah, and I personally love like giving my characters difficult choices too. Like it is super. One of my favorite parts is like, so you got to feed yourself, but you're going into this prison and the warden just told you, to take someone down to the hole and leave them there for a month. Something like this is like, do you revolt? What do you do?
I'm bad at those kind of things.
I love it. Giving the players those awkward like decisions, and I think that
I always aim
stems
for the best situation.
it stems a little bit from my like extensive gameplay of the Telltale game series, where there is no good decision; they're all bad.
If I wanted to play Telltale, I play Telltale, Joe.
You've been playing it all along; you just didn't know.
Casey will remember this. Oh my. But I think we accidentally went a little more in depth than we meant to, because now I want to play a Prison Break game.
Yeah, see, this is what happens when you start planning games. Is you come up with these ideas, and you're like, you know what? It's time to start a new game. And then you're like, oh look, I have 4 going.
This sounds cool as hell.
Yeah, it is definitely.
I'm into it.
And when you're doing this this bottom up view where you're starting with the smaller city and you really like are specking out this area very thoroughly, you tend to do that like really bad because you get attached to these ideas and you're like, man. And the other thing is like I don't know how like you create your worlds, but a lot of times I might think of like the area that I'm in and maybe like 1 or 2 surrounding areas, and that'll be as extensive as I plan out.
Yeah. This kind of area probably doesn't have like a satellite city, but where's the big metropolitan area nearby? That's something you might want to think about.
Yeah, so there's probably another city nearby, and what is there? And so then you start doing the same process with another city nearby.
If this does end up a Prison Break story, we probably need to plan a place for the party to buy horses about 2 or 3 miles out of town. It's like a ranch or something. We probably need to set that up, like a small little ranching community.
So then you could have a player that used to like, or maybe sleeps at that ranch.
Yeah. Just far enough out of town that it's a new area, basically.
It's always great to have like this little bit of familiarity with something that might come in handy later on,
And that's where the players get the illusion of choice.
Well, it a lot of like game masters, and that's another kind of like topic, but the idea of sandboxing in your characters or allowing them to have some choice, where I don't like flushing out everything because I'd let my players create my world. I sit back and watch them create my world and just kind of steer them a little bit here and there when they get lost or need focus. It is definitely easier that way. But it requires a little bit more finesse to work on your feet, I would say.
So we got a city, and we could sit here all night naming places and coming up with NPCs. I could do that all day. I love doing that. I will add, as you do that, don't make a bunch of PC characters with character sheets in your town. It's going to eat up a lot of your time, and
Yes.
most people aren't player classes. Just use the stat blocks.
No, and to be honest, like NPCs don't stick around always, right? And and you don't know which ones your characters are going to latch onto. So like you can be super thorough. You can go through and be like, this NPC like talks with a little bit of a draw. They have, you know, this whole backstory, but that's a lot of work, and really, it's
Mhm.
oftentimes thrown away afterwards.
Mhm. And that's why I love my little notebook of like NPC like rough like thumbnail sketch ideas where I want to go talk with that guy. Cool. And I don't know who that guy's going to be. I didn't plan on you talking to that guy, but I have on my sheet number 3 down of the like 15 NPC ideas I have as backups. Gregory is about 65. Um, Tends to have a little bit of trouble getting around at this age, and he'll be friendly as long as you let him talk and tell his stories and are happy to listen. I may not have planned on you talking to him, but I have that sheet of like 15 people that I have if you talk to someone I didn't plan on. And it's going to be one of those people. It doesn't really matter which one. Grigori just happened to be the first name to catch my eye.
Yeah, and it really depends on how much time I have too. Like,
Yeah.
in our game that we're playing currently online, with some of my friends, I created like a setting where they were going to go into a bathhouse, and there was a dungeon underneath it. I just filled the bathhouse with random people. Didn't even give them names. I just had one that was like girl that's gonna flirt with everyone and anyone who's there. Well, that NPC turned into like a character that is still in the game and is one of the ones that I like fleshed out the most now. But at that time, I didn't even have a name for the character.
Yeah, she's like the primary love interest for our bard now.
So it's kind of like, don't be afraid to not have stuff spec'd out either. You can definitely go with the very minimum. The benefit to having a little bit more is that you have that created already and you can add to it, right? You might have, my innkeeper's name is Frank. And
where's our city name, chat?
Yeah, where's the city name? And Frank
Fine,
is the innkeeper. He's got a bum leg, right?
Yeah.
And that might be all I spec out about him. I might not have given him anything more than that. Frank
But
with
that's
a bum
something.
leg. But that's something, and I will remember that.
When I did our barkeep, I think I just wrote definitely from Texas.
Definitely from
And
Texas.
he's not actually from Texas, but he does talk kind of like this, and he's very cordial with the ladies, and he's very quick to fight if someone causes trouble in his place. That's a little more Mississippi, but you get my point.
Yeah, so like descriptors are very good for NPCs. Like you don't have to spec out every stat for them, but just like, all right, let's get a server name. What do we think about for a server?
Bar
hop server. Could be girl, could be guy, doesn't matter.
Annalise.
All right, so Anna, something like that. Doesn't have a last name. Doesn't matter. Annalise.
Yeah.
What's a defining characteristic of Annalise? The thing that
she's
you've
not
noticed.
going to go back and work on the horse ranch again.
Hates horses. That's what I heard. So, this is how, the only thing I remember about this NPC is she does not want anything to do with horses. You start talking about horses, she loses interest and has no interest in you. Or maybe she just talks smack about these horses all the time. There was poop all over her nice shoes. Mayor.
Something pretentious. I don't know why I always make mayors jerks in games, but mayors are always jerks in games.
So
it's
in
just
this, I foresee the warden being the actual jerk, but the mayor could be a jerk too.
Maybe the mayor's less of a jerk and more of an idiot. Maybe he's like the mayor of Townsville.
So maybe the mayor runs the town,
just easily manipulated,
but doesn't actually run the town, right?
Yeah. The mayor signs what the warden tells him to.
Gets run over by the warden. So then we kind of need like a shriveling, like, I'm afraid of everyone mayor name.
I would go and watch some Dukes of Hazzard and make him basically Boss Hog.
Oh my goodness. Boss Hog. Inspired. And so for the warden, my natural like thought when I think of jerk wardens is probably from like, you know, one of the Prison Break movies.
Yeah, you know what popped into my head? The warden, the chain boss from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
So like thinking about inspiration for the warden, like we really want this person to be hated.
Yeah.
Hated by guards and prisoners alike. Even his own people don't like him. Or her.
Well, they fear him. Nurse Ratchet
Oh
would
my
be
God.
another good one.
Nurse Ratchet.
Yeah. Chat needs to talk.
Meet me
Guys,
outside
come on.
for your shot.
Come on, guys. Give us a name. If not, I'm going to name it D. Petersburg.
That's a good name. Let's do that. Warden Petersburg. I'm not going to spell it the same. It's going to be Petersburg instead of Peterson. So yeah, I mean, like, this is kind of the process that I go through, though, is like I just kind of like think about the things that are in the town. I slowly kind of give a little bit of details about them, and then as my players kind of go into them, you know, so this is the city NPCs, kind of just a short, like, quick description about them, and then I might make another one that would be like bars, taverns.
Yeah. And I like to divide these kind of things, like taverns and inns, into cheap, modest, and expensive.
Yeah, so like a lot of times what I'll like to do is like a price guide, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll even give my players those things.
Yeah, so you
Like a
might
little
have
bit of
like,
a-
you know, the low, mid, and high prices for everything. And maybe some of the bars only serve the low, some of them only serve the high, and some of them like have both if you ask the right person. That's definitely a good way to go about it. Saving these as we go, just kind of keep a little bit of a backup. I really don't like the formatting that they have. They use like this really weird style editor that doesn't have everything great in it. But it is handy if this is where you're going to play your game to have everything in there. And this system can allow you to do everything from video to audio and even dice rolling. And it's just one of the many that are out there. There are definitely
there's
some
Fantasy
other ones.
Grounds. I've been told there's a new one coming up called the Roll app, which is kind of up and coming, but I've heard it's good. And I think D&D Beyond is headed that way.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's also just like the straight pen and paper, right? Playing it in person, where you're not using these type of things. Just
Even
trying
if
to
you're
show
going
you
to be
some
online,
tools.
you can just do a Discord call or something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's, you know, this kind of stuff is usually in my personally, I have like a binder, and I print out my papers for everything and organize them in like clear plastic sheets and separate them that way. So I have like quick, easy flip through access to them. just printing up PDFs and such. So I think probably... Well, your camera is not even on that other one yet. It is. Okay. The other things that I kind of wanted to show today, besides just like a quick build into it, were a couple of the other tools. So maybe we'll go over a little bit of those.
While we're talking about maps, let's do Incarnate.
Yeah, so let's take a look at Incarnate. I'm going to get this pulled up here.
This is a favorite of mine.
And I'm going to put a link to it in the chat just so you have an idea of what we're looking at. And let me pull it back up. All right, so Incarnate has a free version and a pro version. The free version, you have to have a sign up, of course. So let me just hide this so I can log in really fast. I'm sure it's going to be like, hey, you haven't logged in 7 years. We don't even know who you are. Hey, look at that. It does. Not know who I am. Forgot my password. But it's kind of a map making tool that is very, very quick and useful. It has like a bunch of icons that you can place out, and it, I definitely will show you once I get it pulled up. I've just got to go through the password reset real quick. Since I don't think I've logged into Incarnate since I was in college, so it's been a while. But that's largely because I don't use a lot of maps. And when I do, it's like very quick and kind of just thrown together. I don't believe that maps are needed for the largest part, but they're cool to have. I've also been playing a lot more of actually like pre-constructed worlds for a while, so I haven't had to make any in a while.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Reset. Oh my goodness. And now they need you to confirm. Are you sure you reset your password? Yes, I'm sure. Sorry, guys. Well, I should have did this earlier. I didn't realize my password was going to need to be reset.
In the meantime, I'm playing on the name generator.
Yeah, so that's another good, really like great tool. Is the like the Donjon one? Is that what you're on?
I'm actually on another one, name-generator.org.uk, which is a preferred one of mine. Though the Donjon one is great, as is fantasynamegenerator.org.
Did I send this to my spam folder? That's the other question. I would not be surprised if I've already gotten this email and it's just taking forever because of my internet being super slow because I'm currently streaming. Not there.
But, yeah, we've looked at this city map. And Incarnate, basically, while Joe gets it pulled up, I can log into mine if you like, Joe.
Yeah, but I don't have that. I don't have it set up for.
Yeah.
Maybe
but basically, it is a kind of like the ultimate Microsoft Paint of map making. You can sculpt out land masses. It has like stamp on like places of interest tools. Very useful. When you get in, yeah, it wants an account, but like Joe said, it is free to make one.
I have an account. It is just not letting me log into it. That's unfortunate. So I may have to mess with that later. Because it said it sent me a confirmation email, but it is not coming through. So
Mine sent it to an email address I didn't expect. Like I forgot which email address I was using for
well,
it.
I went in and did the forgot password, so it set. Yeah, I don't know. It's not even letting me know.
They've recently added a ton of new features to Incarnate. It's ridiculous. It used to just be land masses, but now they have it set so you can use it for smaller regional maps or battle maps or more like 3D renderings of a situation. It's really neat.
So we may have to look at that one on another episode because I'm just not getting it to pull up. But it's definitely a really cool tool, and you should definitely check it out. I put a link in the chat for you guys. Other tools that I like a lot. Obsidian Portal is really cool. If you wanted a
I'm not super
different
familiar with that
place
one.
to kind of keep your information, it's really great for note taking about your game. And I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. We'll show you that one on screen because that one will no doubt load. All right. So this one is a wiki basically that you can set up and you can track your adventure. You can do character creation. It runs on iPads and stuff as well as mobile devices. It had really good reviews. I had been recommended it from several different places, so I finally did check it out, and it was really cool. Unfortunately, I already had like a rather large campaign in progress, so I didn't use it, but we could do like still don't have a city name, so let's call this Create a World. Get started. And it wants me to sign in.
The world is called Coruscant. It's very original.
Going to take this off the camera for a moment while I sign in. So here is an example campaign that I made for our Strahd game a while back. So one of the cool things that this has is an adventure log. So you can kind of come in here and you can keep track of what your campaign is happening. As you can see, I haven't used this in several years, so it's definitely been a while. You can add images, and all of this stuff you can set it up to where your players can see it if you want to. You can invite your players to the game in here, and all of you can use this wiki to track your stuff. You can set up new characters, which I think I have just like Strahd set up in here. And as you can see, I did not go into big details because I was super busy at the time. You can add a new map, which is just like an image upload. So this kind of like lets you keep all of your stuff in one place. You could definitely invite your players to it. I want to say they had some like demos on here somewhere. Quick links. All campaigns. So you can just hit like plus here and add a new log post. So players got lost. They ended up in town B. And you can save these kind of things so that way basically you're writing notes. Your players can make these as well. You can make them GM specific, and you can save them, create email posts and things like that. So you could tell your players like, hey, here's what you guys did in your game. Here's some of the things that you know. So you can start creating like wiki posts about like NPCs that they met. And so they're basically like, it's just basically a giant Wikipedia that you basically create. It's got dice rollers built in. It's pretty neat for that. I was thinking there was some sort of demo on here, but I'm not seeing it. It's been a long time since I used this, but it's very helpful for that kind of thing. What else do we have? Other tools. Rollable tables are really cool. I like Donjon or Cobalt Fight Club for those.
I have not messed with Kobold Fight Club.
Cobalt Fight Club is really good for encounter building.
Yeah.
If you especially if you use the CR kind of like encounter building.
So in that regard, actually, I really like the new encounter builder in D&D Beyond.
So this is
Of
kind
course,
of
for that,
a look into what it looks like. So say you've got 4 players, they're like level 5. This gives you a daily budget of experience. Hold on one second.
you're still muted, Joe.
There we go. Mic back on. So this is your daily budget of how much experience you can handle, and these are your different encounters. So you could kind of do a random medium encounter, and this will give you creatures from the Dungeons and Dragons world that should be okay for your characters to fight at that level. You can make it hard, deadly, easy, or medium. So if you go deadly,
Okay.
you get a quasit, which is 8 quasits, probably pretty difficult for 4 players at level 5. You can also kind of build this yourself by actually adding in monsters you want to see if the monsters you had in mind are too strong. And it's kind of a rule of thumb. Like, you can add them in here. It'll calculate the CR and all of that from the monster manual or wherever book they're from.
The game book tells you that CR is the level that 7 players should be at to kill that monster. That is silliness. 7 players can kill almost anything.
Yeah.
Because the game is actually the action economy, the turns, number of turns per side is what actually determines these types of things.
Yeah, and it's
15 kobolds is far more deadly than a CR15 thing.
Oh, definitely. And just for curiosity, let's see what that looks like in here. So, kobold, funny enough, it's a 1/8. So if we did, now keep in mind we're at 4 players. Let's drop the level to 1. So it says that they should have 1,200 for a daily budget, or for a single encounter, 300 is supposed to be hard. So that means, according to this, they should be able to handle 12 kobolds with 4 players at level 1, which is a lot. That's why it's deadly. See?
They will eat you alive.
Now, if you kick that down some, let's see where it goes before it drops the difficulty. So 6 is hard. 5 is medium. So this is pretty, it's not... I think that 4 players could handle 3 kobolds. That's easy. 4, probably still doable. You get into 6, you're going to get into, possibly killing your players. Realistically.
It's true. We got killed by twig blights one time. And twig blights are not deadly, but when there's 12 of them...
Or 50 of them, if you're playing in my game.
You'll learn, Joe game is hard game. Joe likes Dark Souls stuff.
So it's one of these things that it's okay to make your game hard mode if you tell your players that's what you're doing. You say to your players, this game is going to be hard. Don't be afraid to run. And throw hard shit at them. And eventually, your players learn, hey, maybe I shouldn't fight everything. Talking smack to them, level 9 spellcaster when you're level 3 might get you in some trouble. These things. So that tool is very useful. I think Kobold Fight Club I use quite a bit. The other tool that I like a lot is Donjon. Have you used that one at all, Casey?
I don't think I have. I don't use a lot of online tools, if I'm being real honest.
So this one is really good for, I use it a lot for treasure generating. And I don't use the treasure that it gives me, but I use it to get, like, ideas on treasure. So if they had, like...
Oh, I have been on this once.
A level 4, and you want them to have encounters, treasures, magic items. These are things you could give your players at this low, It's cool. Like, you could sort it by rarity. So if you want to say, I want to find an uncommon potion. These are some of the uncommon potions. Very good for that kind of stuff. The random one is very good as well. You can set it to be a treasure hoard, so they fought some creature at CR5.
Okay, I lied. I have used this.
And so it gives you some random magical items. Very useful for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What else do they have in here? They have quite a bit of cool stuff in this site. I've used it quite a bit. Fantasy name generators built in here. So you can do human names. They've got different races.
I used to really like Orc Pub, but I've been told that Wizards of the Coast killed Orc Pub Brewery.
Monstrous names. Different races. Those are pretty good. Fantasy world generator. So you can do a random here. You know how we just did all that work? You can give it a random thing, and it will generate information about cities for you. You can tell it what you want. Of course, it's taking forever to load because I'm streaming. I assure you it's normally not that fast. Or slow, I mean. But it is right now. But it'll generate a whole bunch of information for you, like your city name and all of that. Very useful if you're just being lazy. Random inn generator, random towns. So these are kind of cool. Like, here's a menu. Here's how much stuff cost. Oh, look, there's boiled mutton. My player's like, hey, I want some food. I'm like, all right, we got pottage and boiled eggs. It costs 9 copper. It even gives you NPC names, right? Gives a little description about them. Joan is short with messy auburn hair and large hazel eyes. She's dying. Well, she's desperately seeking the secret of immortality. Aren't we all?
I mean, I certainly am.
I really like it for that kind of stuff, and these rumors are always kind of cool, too. I've used these a few times for, like, little hooks and stuff. So you've got a group of pilgrims and uncovered a terrible secret in the Bade Waste. Insert random thing in your game here. I love random rollable tables because they're super useful when you haven't done a lot of prep. And so this kind of stuff is like a crutch you can lean on, I would really like to show you guys the Incarnate tool because it's really cool. But unfortunately, I just cannot get it to load. So I think we're going to have to show that on another stream.
I mentioned D&D Beyond, which I still hold as I really like it, but keep in mind you have to buy stuff to get the full use of it.
Yeah.
If you already own books, that can be kind of annoying. Token Stamp is great for Roll20.
Manage. Another tool that I've used a little bit is probably going to go away, but it's a website called Pyromancers, and they have a dungeon painter, which is really cool.
Yeah. Why do you think it's going to go away?
Well, because it's written in Flash, for one. So Flash is no more as of the end of the year. And they haven't shown any like signs that they're upgrading it, so I kind of feel like it's going away. I could be wrong, but
I hope you're wrong.
what else have I seen that was interesting for new players and new game masters? Dungeons. I'm looking through my bookmarks. I have so much stuff on Dungeons and Dragons. It's not even funny. Goodberry Monthly, another fun website.
Oh, the audio has desynced so bad.
Has it? Yeah,
Yeah.
my web. I think the kids are maybe watching the movie or something.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah. So on this one, Goodberry Monthly, right now they have some encounters and hooks in the City of Truth. So these are like fun little things that you could have. You come across a bloodied corpse. Like, some of these words might be not relative to your game, falsely. But you could definitely say it's a bloodied corpse, brain scattered, etc. These are just little like encounters that might happen in a city. And I like using this kind of stuff for ideas. Little adventure hooks. That's pretty useful.
Joe and I recently talked about on a stream, uh, rap or drive through RPG, which is like a popular site for buying and selling tabletop games, has some bundles for sale right now. Some COVID-19 like relief charity bundles, and amongst the offerings in those are several great books like with that are just like a collection of 200 story hooks or 150 descriptions of caves. Um, and those books might be of interest to people who need that extra springboard.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there like that, and again, like if you really get lost in creating your own world and starting it, you can always piggyback off of an existing one, test it out, see how it fits, and I recommend newer game masters to do that as well because it gives you a little bit less to worry about when you're learning how to run a game. Being able to use information that's already there, and your player's like, oh, I go here and like, let me look through this book real quick and see, oh, okay, yeah, there's a thing there. But it's not as fun of an experience as building your own. And most people who've tried the modules, they end up building their own very quickly afterwards.
That's my favorite part. It always has been, is creating the world and building it up and making that thing to offer to my players. Um, Writing lore, making up cities. That's always been my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like you're almost writing a book, and it's a book you enjoy because you made it, and your players made it with you, and you have memories tied to it. And like, for me, it's a lot of fun. But I think we're probably near the end of our stream here.
Yeah, I think so.
I was gonna show you a little bit more, but I unfortunately cannot get into the software, so I'm gonna try to get that set up for the next show. But if you had some ideas on things you'd like to see, or ideas on things you'd like to add to the world, like we can definitely look at that. I want to create this as a group, for sure.
Yeah. We're also talking about a couple other streams. We're going to start kind of doing a little more scheduled content. On Thursdays, we're going to be doing read-throughs of RPGs, specifically like third-party indie creation RPGs. On our list, we have things like Snowfall, a Norse noir role-playing game. We have one I'm really excited about called Spell, the RPG that involves Scrabble tiles for your magic casting. And then there is Hobomancer, in which we will be playing as hobos using unconventional magic to defend the American dream. Um, and all of those will be very fun. And we're going to read through them and talk through the books and see how they work and offer a little bit of a review, basically. And then on Fridays, might change to Saturdays. We're still working on the schedule. We'll be doing live plays every other week of various games. We're starting with Kids on Bikes. We'll probably play like 4 or 5 sessions to finish out that campaign and then start a new game with a rotating cast. and that will be every other week. And then the alternating weeks, I do a show called Cover to Cover, in which we talk about different elements of the RPG community and different like niche like groups, and help people figure out which one is best for them.
So our next upcoming stream that I have on my schedule is Thursday.
Correct.
And that will probably be on Casey's channel, most likely. So be sure you join in for that. We'll be doing that at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
And you can find me at that name below on Twitch, KCT92. I can be found on Twitter at KCT931 because the 92 was taken. Maybe I can get that one day. I don't know what RPG we're reading through yet, Joe. Do you have a suggestion?
You know, I would really like to take a look at Swords Fall.
Let's do Swords Fall because I want to play that soon.
And I think that would be really interesting to take an in-depth look at, because I've watched a little bit of other players looking at it, but I kind of want to dig into it, you know?
Yeah, it's really neat. He actually just announced today another property. It's going to be, this is really interesting, and it's something I want to talk about later. Brandon, the guy who makes Swords Fall, on his Twitch at about, I think it was 2 o'clock our time, he announced that he's working with the Roll app, the new like Roll20 competitor, and he will be releasing his next supplement for the Swords Fall system exclusively on the Roll app. That'll be the only place to get it. And it's called, I think, Expedition into the Ebon Wastes. And this one, he's kind of rolling it out where you get different parts of the full system one at a time before he releases a core book. I think the smaller publications are a way for him to kind of raise money for the core book printing while he's still writing it. This one involves mech combat.
Ooh.
Yeah. He showed one of the robots on stream today. It was super cool. It had a very like Pacific Rim look to it, but with a laser sword.
That'd be cool. I have to
Yeah,
check
it's really
that
cool.
out.
I'm very curious about having an exclusivity deal with a specific digital platform. I'm very curious about that. But I will definitely look at Swords Fall, Summit of Kings, Battle for the Supreme Jalen Thursday. I think that'll be a fun one, and it's fairly short, and we'll be able to get through it in a reasonable amount of time. I'm looking for people to play that one with us. That one is a little more... I disagree. I think anyone can jump into that one. But there's a certain... Because you're playing as characters that are musicians, a lot of people think you yourself have to be a musician. I wholeheartedly disagree. And Brandon, the creator, will tell you you can just use the mechanics. You don't actually have to perform. But essentially, it's a rap battle game. And the players compete in oratory combat. And I want to get a game going. I think that one would be way fun.
Are you going to call it a bard stream?
No, they're not.
I know.
So to be specific, they're not bards.
It's a secret. It's the secret bard fantasy, though.
Oh,
Just having a rap battle.
yeah. Well, it should be really fun. The NPCs in it are all based off of legendary American rappers. So there's like an NPC that's basically Biggie, and there's an NPC based on Kendrick Lamar, and there's a Snoop Dogg kind of NPC. They're like the Elite Four, right? They're like the supreme Jalens that act as NPCs in the game, and it's really cool. It's really cool. The game setting is like Black Panther meets Game of Thrones. It's Afrofuturist, Afro punk. Is Juice World an undead too soon? I don't get that. Oh man, that is a little too soon. Not cool, bro. Jason, you gonna play in that one with us? Can you rap? Can Jason rap? Yeah. He says yeah. I can improv, and that's the thing. It'll probably end up being pretty silly, right? But we'll make it happen. It'll be a good time. I want to play Hobomancer like so bad.
Hobomancer does look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's one called Imp of the Perverse where basically it's like a Edgar Allan Poe style Gothic Americana game where the DM's main job is to tempt the players into doing bad things and being assholes. It's called Imp of the Perverse. I'm excited about that one. Uh, my friend Mariah will be DMing a game of Monster Hearts 2 later down the line, and I'm excited for that. But we got lots of things planned, and if you're interested in playing in them, contact me. Let me know. Maybe we can work something out.
And of course,
Twitter.
my bot is asleep, so we're just gonna say my Twitter link is down below the page. You can find Casey's on his page as well if you're interested in playing a game with us. Feel free to reach out to us on there.
Yeah, or if there's something you want us to talk about, if you have questions, reach out and we'll try to answer them on stream. I make YouTube videos as well. I only have like 3 right now, but they're coming. Same name, KCT92 for that on YouTube.
Yeah, and also if you missed the first half of this, we are going to be putting this on YouTube as well. I will be putting a link in my description below the stream for my YouTube, which I think is already there, but if it's not, I will be adding it. Where you can check out the entire stream, which is about 2 hours or so at this point.
Yeah. Like Jada's page, like my page, we're getting close to 50, y'all. Pretty soon we'll be able to make you guys some emotes. We'll be able to set up team streams. We'll be able to do all sorts of cool stuff for you guys. I'm planning to do some giveaways.
I have a lot
Um,
of artist friends too, so I'm gonna get some really cool emotes.
yeah, I'm actually, by the way, I'm going to be doing a charity stream, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. For Cover to Cover, our friend Linda Detweiler will be on. She is a high school teacher in Christian County who set up a very successful gaming club for her school. They play Magic, they play Dungeons and Dragons, all sorts of great games, and it's a great thing for the kids to be doing after school. She's gone around the country giving presentations, helping other teachers set up similar clubs, and it's a great thing. She's going to come on and we're going to do a stream talking about that experience of going around and talking about gaming, setting up her club, and running games for teenagers, um, which you might do at your library or at the local game store. But I think it's a great opportunity. And we're going to be raising money for Magic Kids, MAGIKIDS, which is a group that helps fund such endeavors of high school gaming clubs. And they accept donations of bulk Magic cards. I'm actually going through my collection right now. I'm probably at about 5,000 cards. I'm still sorting through to donate. I'm taking out anything past a playset to donate to them. But
Yeah, and they're really a great organization. We ran into them when we were in one of the Magic Fests in Atlanta, and they had some
they
really cool
also,
stuff.
they invented their own Oathbreaker format that they promote on their page too. Um, but yeah, donate to them if you can. I'm still working. I'm trying to figure out how to put the donate link on my page. But we'll kick off like a week of donations with that stream of Cover to Cover, and the donate button will be up all week, culminating in I will stream going to send my cards off in the mail, and it'll be fun. So check that out.
All right, well, I think we're going to wrap it up for the evening. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, please give us a follow, help support the channel, and we will see you guys on Thursday on Casey's channel.
See you then. Play more games.